Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of big finished audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 21st of August, 2019, we are starting a look at what was the final broadcast story of Season 17, the final story of the broadcast story of the Graham Williams era, the final broadcast story of Douglas Adams' tenure as script editor, and the final broadcast, and the final just story in general, or at least the final broadcast story of David Brierly's stint on voicing K9, the Horns of Nimon. Yeah, I was kind of avoiding saying the title because that means I'd actually have to start talking about the episode. We're obviously starting today with part 1. Now, oddly enough, part 1 starts out pretty okay for the first 7 minutes or so. We start off with, after a kind of a crap model shot, that's kind of par for the course. This was running towards the end of the season, so the budget was running out, and they were saving money for the planned finale, which sadly got cancelled, which we will, of course, talk about more in the next video. But with the two bickering guards taking a fleet of, a cargo of humans to Skonos. They're part of the Skonan Empire, and they're making a tribute to the titular Nimon. Now, the Nimon are, now, it's actually a decent setup for a story. You have, a spaceship, you could really take on a big topic of human trafficking with this sort of plot idea, especially, and it's something that you could really get a good sense of Doctor Who doing, especially after the last story was Nightmare of Eden, which took on the drug trade and drug trafficking, but sadly, the Horns of Nimon actually doesn't really take much of this. At least part 1, we get very little time with these characters. They're just sort of there for the plot, and to basically establish kind of that while they're from the planet Aneth, and while Aneth is still under the subjugation of Skonos, that and the rundown set kind of establish that the Skonan Empire is kind of crap. They've kind of lost any sort of luster that they at any point may have had. They're no longer sort of the scourge of the galaxy. They're really just sort of kind of wasting away. I'd also argue that early on the humor actually works. Tom Baker and Lalla Ward continue to show great chemistry together. They the Doctor and Romana, though the Doctor's plot motivations here are, let's materialize the TARDIS and then take it apart. That just puts them in danger. It's a weird characterization of the Doctor, which is even more odd because this script was written by Anthony Reed, who script edited like half of season 15 and all of season 16. So it's from a script editor who kind of should know better. He should know that the Doctor, well, kind of irresponsible, wouldn't put himself in this kind of immediate danger. It's the Doctor here. It's just a very odd characterization, and a characterization that just sort of comes out of nowhere and is more just like, let's get sort of just to get them to the plot and get them on the outside of the spaceship so they can have a cliffhanger with the Doctor and K9 being having asteroids hurled at them. Nothing that really, and it's not anything that really makes a lot of sense. They're it's one of those. It's one of sort of those stories. It's very much a story all about kind of about the characters uh, living in sort of living out their um, living out their lives here in this empire that's not really all that um, all that great. It's a silly empire, and you really see that when you actually go to Skonnos. By the time you get to Skonnos and the Doctor gets on the ship, the episode has fallen apart. You have Soldeed, who is like the emperor, I guess. He's sort of the leader character, and um, and he basically is played by Graham Crowden, who chews all the scenery. Um, it's not a this isn't a great performance. This is a just a scenery chewer and someone who really isn't paying attention to what's going on. He's really is um, he really is one of those just he's just not a good actor, and he's not taking this seriously. um, and honestly, a lot of the sets look really drab. They're just sort of they look they're just they're like just these drab sets. There's a nice moment where the Doctor and Romana sort of the Doctor finds out Romana built her own sonic screwdriver. That's really nice. But other than that, this is a story that just it fails to be gripping. Um, it's a story where you just sort of you get the Doctor and Romana involved in a plot, and that really they don't have anything to do with, like, the cliffhanger structure is so weird. Like, Romana's in danger, the Nimon shows up, and now the Doctor's in danger, almost like it's trying to do like 3 cliffhangers at once, but none of them actually feel in any way, shape, or form like cliffhangers. Just structurally, this isn't a sound story, and the tributes to the Nimon are even worse because they don't have any personality. They're just sort of there. This is a story where you kind of need personality to make its supporting characters shine, and it's something that you don't get. So overall, I'm going to give The Horns of Nimon Part 1 a 3 out of 10. It is the 21st of August 2019, and I just finished watching Part 2 of The Horns of Nimon. Part 2 of The Horns of Nimon is... It slowly loses any more potential that Part 1 may have had. The big issue here, very little actually is happening. There's not enough story here, partially to contain 4 episodes. You have the issue of just, one, Skonnos isn't interesting. The characters aren't interesting. The Doctor finds his way out of peril with K9 quickly, very, very slowly. And even in trying to fix the TARDIS, there's this really this comedic sound effect of just a bunch hour, it's one of those stories where you have like it's this boing. It sounds like a stock image. And it's weird. it sounds like it must have, you'd think, oh, that must be a joke. No, it's actually a real sound effect that the um, that the actors, actually thought, yeah, we will use this. This will be our actual sound effect for this an actual sound effect used in the story. Also, just the Doctor spends most of the first half of the episode just stuck on the TARDIS, essentially doing nothing. It's really quite boring. Um, you know, it's it's not really like, oh, it's not showing a um uh you know it, it's not a it's not a story that you really get a good sense, a good real sense about. um with a real good sense of what the story's doing. um it's it's really just then the Doctor arrives on Skanos and runs around while Romana and the tributes from Aneth basically basically make their way into basically make their way towards the Nimon, and the Nimon attacking them is the big sort of finale, I guess. It's not a great finale at all. It's overall, it's as a cliffhanger, it's quite bad, actually. You really don't get a sense of danger or a sense of um or a sense of what the story is about. Like, it's not your standard plot. Overall it's it could be, there's some good ideas here, but sad ideas are buried under just nothing. Like, Soldeed is, as a character, is way too hammy. The idea is that he's this sort of scientist, I guess. It's not a story that he's not a character that really makes a lot. He doesn't make a lot of sort of sense. He's and then you get a you get a big sort of a big, you try to get what's a big finale to the episode. you know but it really doesn't do much of a of a story. It just sort of stops. It's not it's the Nimon also just, they look crap, and Skonos, it's entirely studio bound, but it looks bad. There's a lot of really bad CSO, not quite as bad as Underworld was. Underworld, still takes the cake for some of the worst CSO in Doctor Who. Underworld is just really bad. but you do get at least just that little bit of a sense that as a story, it's not great. It just sort of devolves into this what's essentially just a really bad sort of farce. But it's not even like good farce. It's just farce in the worst sense that like nothing is making sense. And like Tom Baker is obviously trying, but like even he's almost kind of given up, sort of just given up with the material, and you know, given up, sort of just given up with the material, and sort of shown what the you know one of the what happens when it almost feels like he's gone on as the Doctor for too long. He really could have been using time a little more. So overall, I am going to give The Horns of Nimon Part 2 a a 2 out of 10. Alright, it is the 22nd of August 2019, and I just finished watching Part 3 of The Horns of Nimon. Once again, Horns of Nimon is structurally, it's a weak script. That is the easiest way of putting it. And by a weak script, I mean it's a script that just fails to sort of capture the imagination. The biggest sin, so to speak, of The Horns of Nimon is that as an episode, the script is building itself on not quite knowing what it wants to do. Now, for Part 3, it's trying to basically reveal what the Nimons' actual plan is. They're not actually going to create a second Scanlan Empire. They're going to essentially eat Skonos. They're, I guess, the implication is that they are planet eaters. Like as a species, they essentially eat planets. They kill. They devour everything in sight in what becomes sort of just fury. They are these absolutely terrifying beasts of a creature that just sort of shows really how dangerous they are. Which is perhaps like the one redeeming feature of this episode, is that the Nimon are at least could be kind of interesting. They're hopping from a different planet, but this episode drags itself on. There's legit false tension included here. Basically, creating Nimon that are the tension is almost just sort of fake as you get the Nimon in the same room together, and in the same room together, they basically more Nimon appear, basically to begin their invasion of Skonos and begin their sort of conquest, I guess of the universe. And then you have Romana transported to the last planet as a big cliffhanger when it's not necessary. It's not that necessary of a thing. It's basically creating a cliffhanger. it's not creating a good story and following through each episode with you know something enjoyable. It's just creating a sort of a fake one of those. It's just sort of a lot of it's creating a lot of fake tension. Um, a lot of it is just tension almost for tension's sake. It's not very good. Graham Crowden as Soul Lead is completely over the top and not at all taking this story seriously as he perhaps should. He really needs to be giving a bit of a better performance when it comes to the type of story he's telling. It's not. This isn't a story where you can be absolutely insane and given a really a good a good solid ending. It's creating a part 3. You have the tributes from Aneth who think, oh, we're fine. We're not gonna be dangerous. I guess which is one just plain dumb. That's a really dumb sort of way of doing this story. They thought they were going to be fine through the entire journey. Like what are they on? Are they on like what drugs are they on to come to this sort of a conclusion? Because they obviously realize that the Nimon are going to kill them. It's not a secret. It's the that's what they've built up. Also, so much of this story is built on so lengthy cliffhanger reprises. It feels like they were just either running completely out of time or just didn't know where they were going with the plot. And really, K9 doesn't have a use in the story. He just sort of shows up for 2 seconds here and is called. It seems like he's gonna have a use in part 4, but it's for fake out so they can have the Nimon attack attack our characters, which I'll give them decent way of building up really building up some some sort of tension, though not enough to save it. Like a lot of this episode sins, the direction is just plain bad. It was really just an episode that you don't get the sense that this is a real sort of this isn't all that important of a plot. Like you have the characters almost trying to be like, yes, here's our here's the plot, here are the characters, here's what we're here we are, trying to get things done. We're trying to do a big sort of getting at least a decent sort of finale up and running for the story, but it almost just fails on every aspect. The acting is bad, the direction is bad, the story is bad. It's not one of the Doctor Who greats. It's a Doctor story that's going to be forgotten. So overall, I'm going to give Horns of Nimon Part 3 a 1 out of 10. Alright, it is the 23rd of August 2019, and I just finished watching Part 4 of The Horns of Nimon, the conclusion, and it's crap. It's not good. This is not a good conclusion. It didn't improve at all. At this point, really, Anthony Reed doesn't seem to know how he was supposed to actually end the plot. Mainly because as a plot, it doesn't really end. It feels artificially sort of just pressed out. That, so basically, so the Doctor and Romana kind of make their way into, into the story, basically by having, they make their way into the story by having, by having like stuff on Krynoth, and you have Soldeed going completely insane because, basically because more Nimon appear than originally, than originally intended. It starts off kind, you know, he goes completely insane. He has, like, when I asked how many Nimons have you seen today, he responds in one of the most over the top responses as 3. Or like, and he declares my dreams of conquest. Basically, in a bunch of things that really, a lot of it just doesn't make sense. It's, he's such an over the top character. He's the only sort of enjoyable part here. Even Tom Baker and Lala Ward seem to just be like trying to get through it. And as this is the final sort of episode, it feels like everything's been inflated. Obviously, this wasn't intended to be the final episode of the season, but it just sort of accidentally happened in one of those, in one of those sort of just those little accidents that you really hope don't happen, but sadly it does, and you get a real bit of kind of sadness in regards to what the what a lot of the story was doing. It's one of those, it's something that I genuinely think could have been, it's one of those, really, where you get, you get a good, a good real sense of what the plot is. The idea, there's the big giant, sort of final things where it's like, hey, now we have something like, you get the story, you get the Nimon basically being lumbering villains that are just kind of, they're not really big, big ending, sort of a big ending, of what, a big ending of what the story is in. It's like, oh, this is all the Theseus myth, and this is all mythology, and mythologically speaking, which is kind of just a shame. It's not really, that good of an ending. It really, it doesn't work. The direction is bad. The Graham Williams era really ends on a whimper instead of a bang. Sadly out of their control. So overall, I'm going to give The Horns of Nimon Part 4 a 1 out of 10. And we average up the scores to give The Horns of Nimon a final score of 1.75 out of 10. Thank you, everybody, for watching this admittedly sad installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. We've essentially ended Season 17 on television already. Now the marathon is back from hiatus, so we should be continuing episodes. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And join me next time. Well, that was the last time we will have a televised story with the Graham Williams era. We do have a sort of direct-to-DVD and special engagement in theaters project, originally meant to be from 1992, when this marathon started, but since then, we are actually going to take a look at the 2017 DVD release of SHADA.